Hey guys, Angenor here. So, I was browsing around on different Magic websites looking for something new, and I came across the Frontier format one day. Probably heard of it by now. I'm sure you've heard of it by now. If not, go look it up. Anyway, it got me thinking, what could I do for a Magic format? My idea came to this. It's called Freestyle at the moment. It's supposed to be cheap, fun, and chaotic in any way possible, which this game can never be chaotic. So, the thing that sets it apart from the rest is the fact that you can have 4 or more copies of one specific creature card that's common or uncommon so as not to break the format. My example, Charging Badger. 32 copies in a deck, that's considered legal. Nothing else can be over 4. Getting into the rest of it. So, 60 card or greater deck. Of course, normal rules. Normal land rules apply, so you know who you are. Don't start playing that with 10 different locust lands. Thank you. You may have up to 4 copies of one enchantment, sorcery, instant, artifact, which cannot be a creature, and or one other creature, which can be the artifact creature. So let me set this straight. You can have a second creature and or another non-land, non-creature card, but up to 4 copies of it. Okay, now onto the banned and restricted list. Biovisionary, Goblin Piledriver, Thrumming Stone especially, and then Counterbore, or even Godsend, which all make it really hard, impossible to play cards, especially if we have, say, a Charging Badger that has been taken. So, that's pretty mean. So Biovisionary, if you just crammed all of them into the deck, and I know they're really cheap, it's also why I banned rares, because this fits in there. Anyway, it's just really overpowered when you the game almost immediately. Goblin Piledriver, pretty self-explanatory. Ad nauseum, because you know there's going to be a player that'll play ad nauseum, and something like Mem Knight. And what can you do to stop that? They don't lose any life, and they just... Anyway. Now the restricted to 4 of is anything with Sliver, because Slivers are just overpowered anyway. Well, if you can make a good deck. So my example, the idea that I came up with, is pretty simple. Charging Badger. I know, card that no one will play because it's just terrible. A 1/1 for 1 with trample. I mean, what's the point of putting trample on there, but I'm going to make it useful. So Ripple Belt Raiders, of course, I could always take that out. All it does is give me a reason to use Charging Badger, because then I can just flood them. The non-land, non-creature spell, I'm using Bioshift, because then I can take all of the counters that were previously mentioned on the Rubble Belt, put them onto a Charging Badger, and then that's like a 21/21 Badger that just killed you. Now the lands. Now, I have Blighted Woodlands in here. You don't really need Blighted Woodlands, but I just thought that you could thin out your deck a little easier and also be able to just play whatever you want. So then you can just thin out your deck and get more Badgers, excuse me. So, comment, tell me your ideas, anything that should be banned, restricted, any rule changes you might say. Get out there and have fun. Hey, if you don't like it, you don't have to play it, just an idea. But I would really like it if you would share this, at least the idea. Anyway, have a nice day. Angenor out.